I'd like to introduce the Lord Mayor of Cork. He's going to welcome the guests. We appreciate he's very busy at this time of the year, and we appreciate he coming here this morning just to welcome the guests and say a few words. The Lord Mayor of Cork, Councillor Chris Coghlan.
Good. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone. Can I just say that it's a great honour for me to be here this morning at the start of the Cork Genealogical Society I suppose workshops and lectures that are going to happen throughout the day. Can I first say that interesting enough, the Lord Mayor of Cork has a fantastic job, and one of the fantastic jobs I have is, in many respects, it's an old tradition. It actually dates back to McCurtain and McSweeney in many respects here in the city. When they first initiated the visits to schools, primary schools and secondary schools. That normally happens in September, just after the children coming back after their summer break. And I had the opportunity this year to visit 140 schools in the Cork area. Of course, you visit the schools in the morning because in some schools they still get a half day, or you give them their homework off. And it happens over 5 weeks. Very intense. Unlike previous office holders, I decided this year that I wouldn't just, and no disrespect to talking about rubbish or the environment or whatever, I decided that I would talk about asking young people to begin to engage with special people in their lives while they still had them. And that would be their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents and their great-grandparents. And begin to document, and I use the centenary as an opportunity, begin to document where they came from, especially in around 1916, and get them focused on 1916. Not whether they fought on one side or the other side, but really, where did family come from? What was family life like? And to begin to document stories now. Because all too frequently, one of my biggest regrets is that while I spoke to my great-grandparents, I never really got to know a lot of stuff that I know, a lot of questions I'd love to have known. So out of that, right across 140 schools, I asked them to participate in a project about where their families came from, and to document the family name and bring it into a program or into a story. We had some fantastic responses. We'll be putting them on display in April. But the big thing for me really was about getting them to connect with the family, where their family origins were, finding out more about the family tree and about the future, because they are the future. And quite clearly, for me, it was about them having a sense of belonging, sense of pride in the family name, and about grabbing and writing those stories while they still had opportunities. And I recognise that very, very clearly, and I've had a number of I suppose, opportunities to meet the Cork Genealogy Society over the last number of years. And that's at the Lifelong Learning Festival and at events like this, but also through my own kind of searching and posing questions about where I've come from in many respects. I'm glad to say that for me this is a significant year, because one of the things I've been able to do in many respects is that I now learn quite clearly that my dad's side of the family, Henry O'Shea was Lord Mayor of Cork back in the early 1900s. And my great-grandfather sat with McCurtain and McSweeney on the 1920-24 Council of Cork City Council, the Republican Council as such. So we all have stories. We all have a past. And the key for me really is, in many respects, and I've been saying this to young people right throughout my engagement with them, is that learn about where we've come from. Learn about our past. It's a story, it's a great story, but it's also that sense of belonging of who we are now and where we're going. I'd like very much to commend, I suppose, the officer board and the committee for their great work in pulling today together. You know, the opportunity by which you're going to listen to some fantastic speakers. I'm sorry to say that I won't be able to attend because I have a number of other appointments later on. But when you look at the lectures and the workshops today, the questions, the Q&As, and some of the issues that are going to be thrown up by Tony McCarthy, Ann Marie Coghlan, and Ros McCutchinson, that you look quite clearly and you see quite clearly that there's a very good opportunity here to explore more, but also to share and to learn from each other, because that's the secret really, isn't it? Those little snippets of information, those little traces of what people are actually picking up at the moment, and learning and sharing the information is key. But I'm delighted to be here this morning to launch this and to open it, and I do appreciate the hard work that a lot of people do on a voluntary basis. I launch a lot of things over the last number of months. The term of office is a year, but one of the things that I really do think at times that we don't do enough of is that we don't sell something that actually a lot of people are coming to Ireland to learn more about their ancestors, to learn about where their family has come from. And while we talk about a lot of tourism and we talk about job creations, you know, if you put a value on the work that you do as volunteers or that you do in supporting people and supporting families and stuff like that, the economy would be a very buoyant economy, wouldn't it? Yeah, so maybe somebody, maybe in the new government, whenever that will be, might grab hold of something that's already established, that's already there in our communities, that we have experts that actually do this work on a constant basis and feeding out into those from abroad, but also from Ireland that are seeking and searching for the information. So can I say to you, thank you very much for all the work that you're doing, for all that you're gathering, all the information that you're putting out there, but also the support and help that you're giving to others, not just yourself, but that you give to our communities, be it here in Ireland or across the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The author of Tracing Your Cork Ancestors, Tony, isn't here yet, I think. So we just want to make a presentation of the book to the Lord Mayor. And thank him for coming today. James will walk it out. Thank you very much. We're not doing too bad for time, so we'll move on. My name is Eddie Wallace. I am chairman of the Cork Genealogical Society. I'd like to welcome the vice president of the IGRS, Rosalind McCutcheon. Yes, I said the right name, Rosalind. Thank you, welcome. And also Stephen Smyrl, chairman of the IGRS in Ireland. Stephen is here. A lot of people who know Stephen from Air Hunters on RT television is the trace people. I'll tell you all about that, I'm sure, at some stage. I apologise for our president, Wendy Quirk, from FamilySearch.org. She's not well, so she couldn't come today, and the founder of the Cork Genealogical Society, Declan Chambers, was called away to England. His brother was at Wales, so he had to go to England on Tuesday, so he apologises for not being here. I'd like to welcome the people who came long distances, people from America and United Kingdom, Switzerland, Australia, a few, and from every part of Ireland by the looks of it. Just a quick few words. The Cork Genealogical Society was founded in 1994. We have a little baby next to the IGRS who are celebrating their 80th anniversary this year, and they're going to have the first time they said they'd come outside of Dublin to do an event like this, and they're going to have their annual general meeting as part of the day in the other half. This is half the room, the other half inside is where we will be going later on for the soup and sandwiches, lunch times, and then we can come back again and be started. We have a website and we have a Facebook page if anybody would like to look at what we do and things like that. Just a quick brief, I want to let you know, the other groups here, we have the Cork County Library, we have Kim and Karen O'Riordan from the County Library there, if anybody needs any inquiries about what is in the library, they can go to them. Tract and Genealogy Group around there, Irish Ancestry Research Centre, have a stand there. Ancestral Connections, Laura Maloney, who runs the summer school in UCC, is be there, and you can book down there if you want to. Cork Archives, no, they didn't come today. We have a Flyleaf Press, David Aidan Freak over there with Tracing Your Cork Ancestors book, the third edition, and it's now only €13 to buy in the shop. He's giving it away today for €10 if anybody would like to buy them, and it's invaluable for anybody doing research around the Cork area. We also have people from Clare Roots Society here, and they will be having a conference in September, and they will give leaflets and details about that for anybody that wants to go there. We also have Irish Roots magazine. Julie is over there and Maureen, and the only Irish magazine for genealogy as far as I know, long running, started by Tony McCarthy and continued, and you should support them, I think. We have a man here, he offered to speak to us, but we already had our line-up done. I think is David Monaghan. He's from America, he's an author, he's over there, and he's willing to speak to anybody that may be doing research in America. There he's there. So welcome, he's an author. Now, I've just gone through this. Everything you want to know should be in the information pack. So, there's water down there if anybody needs a drink of water during the day, and that's all I have to say. I hand you over now to Stephen, and he'll say a few words, and after that then we have Marie Coghlan who's going to start off today. So thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Has my voice disappeared? Can you hear me? It sounds like it's just disappeared altogether. I think Eddie's told you quite a bit already. I have a terrible head cold, I'm sorry. The IGRS was, the Irish Genealogical Research Society, was founded 80 years ago in April 1936 as a direct response to the great conflagration of the Public Record Office in Ireland in 1922. I suppose it took 12 years for people to begin to think that they were in a way of trying to make some sense of the destruction and work out how to respond to it. Our society sort of set that ball rolling, similar to the Society of Genealogists in England and Wales, in as much that it encouraged people to try and undertake the research that they might want to take on their family. Now, and when I first started out as a professional genealogist about 30 years ago, there was no such thing as tracing family history in Ireland. Now, that's not to mean that Irish people weren't interested in family history. We've always been interested, but it's more in a familial way that we were interested. We weren't actually going out looking at records. In fact, without being cheeky to any of our American cousins who are here, we thought that the Yanks came to do that, and they did their research, and they went back to America again. But in the last 30 years, we began to realise, particularly as we become more urbanised, and that we no longer have the great contact we used to have with extended relations, or extended members of our family, that we have begun to try and look at the records that are available and begin to trace our family history. And it's become, very popular. It's become great big business now, as well as we know, with companies like Find My Past and Ancestry offering access to records that we could never have hoped to get access to in the past. Not just to allow us to trace our own Irish ancestry, but these days to trace our ancestry or our distant relations who migrated to North America and Australia through all these different sources. The IGRS has an Ireland branch, which sounds like a real contradiction in terms, doesn't it? But the Ireland branch was asked through a survey about 18 months ago what it would like to see the branch providing. And one of the things that came out like a great clarion call was that we'd hold events outside of the capital. We had always wanted to do that, but we were never quite sure whether it would be of much interest. I think you can see by the number in the room today that this is a definite interest. outside of Dublin. So when we got the opportunity to collaborate with the Cork Genealogical Society, we grasped it and decided this was definitely something we want to do, and it forms part of our 80th anniversary celebrations this year. I think that all I can really say beyond that is that, as I mentioned about Find My Past and Ancestry and these various commercial organisations providing access to information, there's still room in Ireland and in the world at large for family history societies such as ours, the Cork Genealogical Society and Clare Root Society and the IGRS. And I can only commend to you that if you're not a member of the Cork Genealogical Society already, take the leaflet today and join. And if you're not a member of the IGRS, take the leaflet and join. It's the best way, because we provide not access to data the way that Find My Past and Ancestry do. We're about collaboration and sharing information and holding events such as this, smaller events, larger events, publishing our newsletters and our journals. And it's a great way to join with others, and not, because genealogy has become quite a solitary pastime. You can put your computer in your box room in the house and do all the research online and never meet another living genealogist. Well, there were lots here today, and I'm sure you'll find you've got great things in common with them, and you can share that by joining a family history society. Thank you very much.
The first speaker today is Ann Marie Coghlan. So you have all the details and the speakers' profiles there, so I'll hand you over to Ann Marie. Okay, thank you.
Can you hear me, everybody?
Yes.
Yeah. Back? No, we can't at the back. No, a bit nearer. Lovely. Right. This is going to be difficult for me because I tend to move around when I'm talking. So if I go off piece, just wave at me. Right, my name's Ann Marie Coghlan. I'm a member of Cork Genealogical Society, and I'm also a member of the British and Irish and Western Isles chapter of APG, which is the Association of Professional Genealogists. And we were a worldwide association, and it does actually bear fruit for the Irish, because somebody said, "Oh, you're Ireland, aren't you?" And then they sort of launched into, my grandfather was in Argentina with a family, and we think he might be Irish. So I'll give him a quick plug now anyway. My family are Cork City, as far as I know. They got stuck. I've got stuck with records. So I started doing everybody else's records to get it out of my system, and I'm still here looking 1860 for my lot. But I have had a hot lead about 2 months ago that they might be here in 1820. So they're Cork City. I've also got heritage in Dublin early on in the early 19th century, and by the castle. I thought that was posh till I found out it wasn't. So we were around the back of the castle, and also County Clare, and it's a Protestant name, so I don't tend to talk about it too much. So I've got a nice spread. Part of the reason why I couldn't get very far back with my Cork lot, I decided to get my DNA done. And got talked into that and completely hooked on it. So I'm very, very interested in genetic genealogy, and I run some of 3 projects for Cork DNA. And we have a project on family tree DNA, and as far as I know, we're the only ones picking up the maternal line in Cork. So if you are thinking of your maternal line and not knowing quite what it was up to, and you want to get it tested, we can give you other people who might have the same genetic link as you. So I do plug the genetic genealogy as and when I can, because the more kits we get into the pot, the more chance we get of matches. Yeah.
Is it possible for the microphone to be turned up a bit more?
Do you want it a bit closer? Okay. Is that better?
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Just shout if, as I say, I do wander about a bit, so I'm finding it quite difficult to stand still. Genetic genealogy, quick blast for that. If you're interested, there's a few of us about. I've got a few born-again genealogists, genetics here. If you want to ask anybody about how to go about it or what their experiences are, there's a few of us in the room. So the other thing I do is I do the social media for Cork Genealogical Society. We've got a hashtag today. We're very posh. We've got a hashtag for the conference, and it is Irish Gen 16 Cork altogether. So Irish, Gen 16 Cork. So if you are tweeting or doing anything else on the social media, if you just stick that on, hopefully we'll get a lot of information and photographs all in one place that we can access later. Irish Gen 16 Cork. Right, so early 20th century sources for family historians. Now it did have Irish on it, and then I got so frustrated with trying to stay in Ireland, I thought, no, I'll take that off. You know what the Irish are like. If you think you hear about an unknown destination and you go on holiday and usually there's an Irish pub there, so you know you're not the first on the doorstep. That we are a nation that look out. We do, you know, we're always looking out. We connect with our family broadly across the world. You know, a seventh cousin is fine, you know, they're still cousins. So because we're a nation that looks out, our records are not going to be all in Ireland. And a lot of people who come talk to me about it, I've come to trace my family in Ireland, where are the records? And say, well, actually, the records you're looking for are actually in London. And they go, oh, right. You know, the records follow the people. So what I've tried to do is I've tried to give opportunities for looking for your extended family. What I'm looking at is a very tight window frame of 1900 to 1930. I didn't want to go past that because then you're getting into the Depression and into the Spanish Civil War, and in our side down here we were very strongly involved in the Spanish Civil War, so all of a sudden you'll be off down those records. So I've tried to keep it quite tight. And because it's quite a tight time frame, the opportunities of tracking your family are very, very strong. You know, so if you've lost an uncle or a great uncle in the 1901 census in Ireland, it's possible you might pick them up in the 1900 census somewhere else. So I'm not going to go through the sources that I've given you, but I'm going to talk about how you can make them work together, so that you can track the ones that try to escape. And you find them, 100 years later, which is brilliant. So I've got to use the PowerPoint, and it's the first time I've done it. Okay, so if it starts jumping about, if it breaks, I know what to do. So we're okay. So the civil records. Right. Why should we research our ancestors, more recent ancestors? Am I okay for? Yeah. Right. Our ancestors born about 1900, we may actually know them because we might have met them as children, or we might have got photographs of them around the house, or we might have stories about them. So we may know them, or we may know of them. The thing is that our family stories may not actually match up with the records, which I'll come to in a minute. They could have been part of our lives when we were little. The good thing about the early 1900s is the records are actually more reliable. You're losing the handwritten lettering. People are getting into stenography, into the typing. You're getting the typists coming through. So you're getting typewritten records, which hopefully are easy to read. So you've got less margin for mistakes or strange spellings coming through. So the parish priest records are no longer that vital. You've also got an increase in education for young children. And we all know, I taught for a long time, the first thing you do when you get hold of a child is teach them how to spell their name. So you're getting standardisation of spellings coming through as well. And it's a good chance if you actually find your family in the early census that the spelling of the surname is probably the spelling that you're using. And if it isn't, then that's something for you to look at. So the standardisation's coming through, which is a heck of a lot easier for us when we're actually working with records. It's easy to pick up, even if it's only an onion skin paper, something that's typewritten rather than the doctor's signature on the parish record. The records tend to be more reliable because they're more centralised, and you've got this increased centralisation and government intervention in people's lives coming through. So the records are going to be centrally held. They're going to be you know, you're going to be able to trace them and track them. If they're going to be in one box, they'll all be in together, that sort of thing. You won't be trying to, you know, match up two sets of archives or anything like that. Because you actually know the people, you know their names, and the standardisation's possibly going to be already settled, you can track them a lot easier. So if you've got a McNamara wandering around, you know, on your land, if you've got a McNamara with a similar spelling in the US and the census, it's possible they might be connected, you know, so you can track the surnames that way. The other thing, as I was saying about the genetic genealogist, is when we get our matches and we all look and we've got, right, now I'm going to get all the people I know are going to be my best matches. And then you get all these people that you've never heard of and all these surnames that you've never heard of who are all genetically related to you. And then when you go and stalk them on Facebook, or you go and have a look at their Flickr account, and they all look like you, and you think, well, yeah, they are mine, actually. There's not an awful lot, you know, they do, but where are they? Who are these people that I'm connected to? And it'll be, you know, we go with our favourite surnames, and then when you get to the sister, oh, well, she got married. She got married to an O'Sullivan. Oh, we'll leave that one. And of course, the sister who marries the O'Sullivan has daughters who then marry somebody else. And the surnames, you know, by 3 generations, you've got a selection of surnames that bear no relation to yours. But they're actually, you're quite close cousins. So if we are looking at genetic matching, it's recommended that we do a descendant tree. So actually what you do is you start with your own first cousins, or even your own brothers and sisters, and track the generations below you. And then you take the next generation up, which would be your parents' generation, and then track all those descendants along that generation. So you're ending up with like a Christmas tree shape rather than an oak tree. So it's coming down like that. And then hopefully the ones on the bottom layer of your Christmas tree are actually your closest matches on your kit. So these are the people that we really need to get hold of and find out what they're doing in Texas, married to Mary Lou O'Shea, you know. So these are the people. So, and the other thing, which I think is fascinating about this generation, is that they lived in such an interesting time. I mean, you think about somebody who was born in 1890 and, you know, died in 2000, what they saw and what they witnessed and what they experienced, and the changes, and what they committed to as well. So, you know, a time where you stood on what you believed in, and you worked from a central faith and a morality that possibly our generation, well, the generations coming through, wouldn't have an understanding of. So that's the famous Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times. Right, the other, now then, how many people recognise this? I know how to use this. Yeah, 1920s, yeah, this is the modern the 20s equivalent of a laptop. Box brownie, I think that's the Kodak one, I'm not sure. I picked the one that was nearest the one we used to have in the house, and I know how to use this because we used to be given it to play with as children. It was light, it was made out of metal, it was portable. If you were really into it, you had your own little dark room in the back room, or under the kitchen table was a favourite in our house, where you developed your photographs. And I had a flashback of being shown how to load the film into it, and we had to go under the bed covers. I don't know why. We had to go under the bed covers and put the box under the bed covers, and then go in after it. And I was thinking afterwards, I thought you could even just put a coat over your head, and it would have worked as well. But this is it. Families had got access to a tool where they could record their lives and the people. The box brownie was brilliant because you didn't have to pose. You could take it anywhere. It worked inside and out. It was light. I've got a photograph of somebody with that, with the hook on the top. It's actually hooked into his belt, so he had it on his belt. And if we're lucky, we will have boxes of photographs of our family. And this to me is the revolution of the early 20th century, that we've actually got records of our families behaving themselves or not behaving themselves, you know. And it was so trendy. It was, you know, people were. It was almost like a disease getting your photograph taken. You were taking photographs all the time of each other, and if you were lucky, people were writing on the back and who they were, where they were, what they were up to. This is my darling husband Gerald sitting by the River Lee on our picnic on our wedding anniversary, if you're lucky, you know. So this, to me, this is my personal opinion, that is the revolution of the 20th century, for the box brownie. Right, now quickly going into civil records, because I'm programmed for tea at 11 o'clock, right? One of the joys of having varifocal lenses, you can't read what you're doing. Right, so I said about the 20th century ancestors, you're more likely to have them in the records because of the increased centralisation of life and politicisation of life. The mother's maiden name comes onto the birth index, which cuts down your time an awful lot when you're actually searching through your O'Sullivans, you know, which O'Sullivan would I like today? I haven't got any yet, but it's only a matter of time, I reckon. The mother's maiden... Yeah, bit straight in. Yeah, I can't read the screen. Right, okay. I'll tell you what might be easy if I just take it off. That'd be better. Yeah, that's brilliant. They're all lovely. Now, that's better. Right, mother's maiden name on the English and Welsh census is 1911. So the thing is with Irish records is we are part of the Crown, whether we like it or not, until 1940. So 1947 is it, when the Republic was established. The death records quote the age of death. So again, that's, again, you're cutting down your search time. And the civil indexes are available online. And we are very, I know we whinge and complain about the Irish system, but we have an awful lot to be thankful for. And we actually have a choice of indexes. So if you don't like the one on family search, you can go and have a look at Irish genealogy and have a look at those. They also, not to muddy the waters, but to help us, is that the local registry office often have their own index as well. So if you're not finding them on the civil index online, it might be worth going into the registry office saying, I can't find so-and-so, is he in the book? And say, because you'll have the dates, so you know what your dates are, and you go in and they will look on their index for you. Now, this is the doozy, this one. The registered given name may not be the name used by the family. And how many of us have got that problem? Yes. My family, they names bear no relation to their birth records at all, especially the women. And I was thinking about this when I was doing it, and I thought, well, if you were born in 1880 or 1890, you were often given the name of somebody in your family. So you'd be inheriting names like Ellen or Honora. Honora disappeared altogether, didn't it? I mean, you know, that was a revelation to me to find out I had a great-grandmother called Honora, because I thought it was brilliant. So those names were coming through. Now, you get the girls coming out who are, they go to girls' schools, they get their friendships, they get their sort of like nicknames. You get given names in the family where you've probably got 2 or 3 Marys. So one of them will end up being Mary Margaret. So then that comes through, and then you become an auntie, you see, when you grow up, and so you're Auntie Margaret instead of Mary. And then the generation below you knows Auntie Margaret, so they're looking for a Margaret Kennedy in the records, and of course there's no Margaret Kennedy there, it's a Mary Kennedy. So in our family, Mary was my mother's name. Everybody knew her as Mary. She was buried as Mary. On her birth certificate, she's Phyllis. How would you get that one? Yeah. But she was called Mary because she looked like the second wife of her great-grandfather, who raised her grandmother, her mother. That was it. So that was how I cracked that one. The other one I was looking for was Vera. Vera, born in 1910. Mary. That took a while to get on. So you're looking for, the people that were changing because women were becoming more enfranchised and more taking more full part in their life. They were actually establishing their own identity. They probably would have had a name different from the given name that was in the family registers. So you have to keep an open mind when you're looking for your girls. What they're going to be called. The other thing is with the growth in Irish nationalism, a lot of girls who had English names would have Irishized them or chosen an Irish name. So you're getting a lot of ethnies and names that you think, gosh, that's interesting. And it turns out it's sort of an approximation of an English name that actually belongs to them. Right, so this is a copy of the civil records for Scotland. Now, we tend to get quite sort of focused on what we're doing. The 1911 census for Scotland, England and Wales and Ireland all have the same information. They're all asking the same information because at the time of the census, Ireland was part of the British Crown, so it was asking the same information. So you can cross-reference your records across the 1911 census, right across. Where are we? Not to here. Canada they've got wonderful records. Family search. If you're looking for a Canadian, you're laughing. They just, I always like breathe a sigh of relief if I see anybody who's Canada, right? Prince Edward Island. Anybody looking for Prince Edward Island at all? Records are all on family search, but they're not indexed. I was up for 2 nights playing with these. Their census records are just fantastic. And the families, you can just literally whip through the census and they're all doing what they should be doing, where they should be doing it, So if you're ever looking for anybody in Prince Edward Island, if you go into the collections on family search, and it's all there, all the stuff's there. Anything that's not there is actually on the Prince Edward Island website, their own personal website. They are very, very well stocked for records, and their census records are fabulous. Scotland's people, another record, this is from Scotland's people. The beauty of them is that if you buy the image, you own it. So even though it's copyright, that's my image. And it's by Geraldine, who drives me distracted. Geraldine Williamson. For a very quiet Presbyterian girl, had a very interesting life. And she disappears about 1930 and I cannot find her. But she was living in Scotland at the time. And she grew up there, and I have a feeling she was going back to Cork, but I can't, with a name like Williamson, where do you start? That's 1911 census, and as you can see, why I put it up is you can see the box, although the image is different, the information that they're asking for is the same. Now with Australia, we've got a bit of a problem, because Australia destroyed all their census records before 1900. Yeah, shock, horror at the front row. My God. Yeah, I think it must be just something in the Australian psyche, I don't know, but they decided to burn the lot. So we've got nothing before 1900 for Australia for census. If you have a convict or somebody who started the colony off, you're laughing, because they're all documented. I've seen police records for people who were born in 1790. With a description, and must be watched at all times was a line underneath it. If you've got them that early, you're fine. If you've got them coming through 1850, 1860, it's very difficult. So 1900 is the first one that you're going to get. New Zealand is a young country anyway. So, but they've got a very strong commitment to getting records online, and their 1901 census is on Ancestry there. The beauty of Australia and New Zealand is that a lot of people came in the early 20th century, came from Ireland and England to settle, and I'm keeping an eye on those records because the wealth of material is going to be very good when it comes up. So that's Geraldine on Scotland's people. Now, this is another doozy. When you die, even though you've gone, you generate an awful lot of paperwork. And so the probate records. This is Prony, and I like Prony, the Northern Ireland government website. they've just redone the website. It's all gone very posh, and when I went into it last night to check the links, I got totally bamboozled because it looks totally different, but the links are all the same. You just have to take a deep breath and go back in. Now they've only got Belfast, Armagh, some of Londonderry, I think. I've got a list somewhere, actually online. But Belfast is the important one because it's the capital city. And you know with probate records, if you put somebody in your will, that wherever they live, that will has to be proved. So if you put somebody in your will that lives in the north of Ireland, your will has to be proved in the north of Ireland. If you have somebody who dies in New Zealand who chooses to send, to give their money to somebody in Dublin, it has to, that will in New Zealand has to be proved in Dublin. So Prony have got a commitment to getting everything online. What it is you've got access to records up to 1960, people who died in 1960. You've got access to their will records or abstracts, which is a description of the will. So what I did was, I didn't go in after surnames. What I did was I put Cork in the keyword box, in the search box, and I got 515 records of people from Cork or who either left a will or were beneficiaries in a will. And what I liked about it is the bottom three, and their names are Babington. And you think, no, that's not Cork. What's that doing there? Cork, it must be something to do with the Cork manufacturing company. But if you actually look at the third one, the most modern one, you can see that Babington actually lives in Cork. So to me, that's looking like somebody who's got Cork connections who actually then comes to live here. So never discount a record because of the surname. So that's the probate. Now, this is where we really come into our own in the 20th centuries. Burial practices. We know in Ireland that we've got Oplot, and we defend it against all comers. And we decide who's going in, who's going to lay down beside my father, which is the line in Waterwood, which I thought was brilliant. I was going to lay down beside his father. So this is the plot. So what happens is if you're visiting, or if you're from Dublin, it might be different in Dublin. I think it probably is actually. What you do is you go into your family plot, and the people underneath you just have to go and make room. So so it's more like a layer cake system. If you've got a big family, you have a big plot, or if you've got friends in high places, you get a nice big plot. That plot has probably been in your family since about 1100. So you can imagine what's happening. Everybody's moving down. Now this is in Capelwhite, and I was actually doing some research with somebody. If you've ever been to Capelwhite burial ground, it's an amazing place. It's actually in the centre of the village. The pub is next door, it's very handy. There's a ruined church, the ruined medieval church is in the centre. The wall of the burial ground is 20 feet high because of the folks who've been going in. So every time the ground goes up a bit, you shore it up a little bit. And everybody drives around this, and I'm thinking, one of these days, when there's plenty of rain, what's going to happen? It's loose stone. Right, so I don't think it's even cemented at the bottom. And it's a tiny burial ground. But I was in looking for Ryan's, so you'll know you know what I was up against. But I think I found them. But when I was there, I saw this, and I thought, I've got to take a photograph of this. This is the cross burial plot, and it's massive. There's 3 stones. This is the middle stone. So you can imagine the width of the stone, the actual width of the plot. These are the Cross family, and you'd actually find them in Capelwhite village. They own a lot of the shops. I don't know how good can you actually read the writing on it? No. Right, well I'll read it to you because it's just brilliant. So you've got 2 sides, and it goes through all the, first of all it goes through the women, and then at the bottom it then tells you about who's, 2 of the women are actually have married in, but they've been allowed in. And then the 2 blokes at the bottom are sons, but it actually tells you, I'd have to go close to it to read you, but one of them is the manager of the creamery in Ula, which is other side of the road. And the other fella is buried in another plot in Tipperary. So I should put down where you'd find him. So there's that side, right? On the right-hand side is the old stone that they've replaced, and it goes back to 1811. So you've got the whole, not only the names, you've actually got the relationships and the names, and anybody who should be in the plot who isn't, who's missing, they've put them in as well. But it's one of 3 stones. Can you imagine the amount of people who must be using this plot? Absolutely huge. So I was just beside myself when I saw this. It was brilliant. So whoever's done that stone is, he's really totally hooked on the genealogy. And the other thing I was going to say about it is the stone, the modern stones are going to be probably of the people who were born in 1900. So you're going to have so-and-so at 85 years old. You can go back, you can check your records because mostly the death ages are pretty accurate. The other thing is that those stones are marking the old family plot. So where you've got a plot and you're not quite sure where your lot are, the modern stones will show you where that plot belongs to you. So of all the Ryans who are in that burial ground, the modern stones were telling me which was the family I was looking for, not the old stones, because they're marking the old place. So you're well away with, if you're looking for headstones, they are a really, really useful marker. Yeah. What's happened to Lily? Right, the invisible Lily. Oh, what's happened to her?
She's invisible.
She has. Any guesses who it might be? Oh, come on, Dublin. Lily Kempston. Yeah? No? No?
Lily of Killarney.
Lily Kempston. Let me get my notes because I have to learn this. Where is she? Lovely girl. She's got her own website and she's trending at the moment on Facebook. Where is she? Here she is. Lily Kempston, volunteer. She was part of the Jacobs lock-in, yeah, and she was she joined the volunteers at 14 years. She's a friend of Rosie Hackett's. Yeah, I'm coming back to you. And the photograph is actually her. I think it's a great niece that's put that website up, lily1916.com. She's also on Ireland.ie, she's on all the Dublin websites, and it's the 6 girls in their blouses and their hats. Yeah? Some people know it. People know it, yeah. It's an iconic photograph. I didn't know who she was, but I knew the photograph. And the 6 girls, they join up, they're in Belfast. I don't reckon one of them's over 17. They look about between 14 and 16 to me. And they're in Belfast and they go and sign the oath for the Irish Republic. And they all come out full of themselves. They've got little flowers in their pockets, and you can tell they're trying to put a uniform together. So they made their own blouses. So they're trying to get some sort of standardisation going. One or two of them have actually got a leather hat, which looks to me like a Girl Guides hat. So they're trying to get themselves, organised. And they're so thrilled with themselves when they've been in and they signed the oath that they put their pennies together and they buy an image to go and get the photograph taken. And it's brilliant, a brilliant photograph. So Lily1916.com. If you don't know about her, go and read it. She's just an amazing story. She was one of the right-hand girls. I mean, what would a 16-year-old girl do today in that situation? And she was running messages, and also amazing girl. Right, so that's the invisible Lily. Right, militaryarchives.ie. Now, when I'm looking at the records for Ireland, I do not know an awful lot about them. Okay, so don't ask me about them. What I'm interested in is my family's connection to the records. And I cannot make a judgment on what decisions they made because I'm not in their shoes. So I'm just interested in the fact that they committed or they didn't commit to a set of values or a set of morals at that time. But I just think, look, any information you get is going to give you more information about your family. So the militaryarchives.ie is the official location for military records for Ireland. What happened was that I've been sort of mulling it about, you know, just trying to get my head around all these records. It's the people who were leading the rising were very conscious of their image and what they were actually projecting and presenting to the outer world. They were really, really conscious of how they were teaching their children, what values they wanted these children to have. So there was a conscious decision to gather information and material from, I think, about 1928, 1930, about the history and the story of independence. So the Military Archives is holding a lot of this documentation. I heard a presentation, very good presentation, from one of the curators about 3 years ago in Waterford, and he said, we have an awful lot of stuff, we cannot release it to you. If you are a member of the family and you can produce evidence, you can ask for your family's history. They've got a lot of stuff they don't even know what it is, so they're asking people to give ideas of, do you recognise the people in this photograph? It's just a phenomenal amount of material there. What they're holding, I think if I can read it is, they're holding the military service pensions collection. Now that's including all the evidence of activity in the Rising and in the War of Independence. The 1916 medal, as I understand it, most people went for that and applied for it if they were involved in the Rising or in the subsequent war. A lot of people who didn't agree with the upcoming government didn't apply for the pension on principle. So you may not get them in the pensions record and you think, I wonder what happened to them. They might just have been making a political stand or a moral stand and say, right, I can live without that 6 months a week because I'm getting it from somebody I don't agree with. But the medals collection, they said 95% of people went for the medal because it was a statement of commitment to the new republic. Now the only problem is because they're still giving out the medals. From what I can gather, I was looking at the website, 1988 they were giving a medal out, and it's still under data protection. And that's the other thing with the early 20th century records, is you're up against data protection. So that release of list of people who've actually got a medal is on the long finger. But generally families tend to know whether they've got a medal or not, because it'll be trotted out regularly and shown around the family. So that's the best I can offer you at the moment. The other thing on the military archives.ie is the military census of 1922. I was so disappointed I didn't recognise anybody in the list at all. I'll have to keep looking. Again, reviewing in 1922 who it was that was involved in the initial struggle. And the Irish volunteers, as you know, everybody was just joining up and hooking in and doing what they do. So what they did was they did a census of anybody in active duty in 1922. And the brilliant part about that is that the majority of the people who are actually in active duty in the Irish Army were not actually on home territory. So they were posted all over the place. So you've got the barracks where they're actually working, and then you've got the place of birth and the next of kin. But it is all men, which I will come to later. So you're looking for your surnames on that one. Very, very good. All free. You don't have to worry about it. There's plenty more there on the military archives on the online collection. And as I say, behind it's an iceberg because behind it there's stuff you can actually go and see in Dublin, and then there's other stuff you can access on a personal basis. Now their outreach is the Bureau of Military History.ie, and that's actually linked in, so that's part of the link. It's a partnership between National Archives and Military Archives. It presents material previously gathered to provide a history of the movement to independence and evidence of pension purposes. And we all know what happened with the pension and 1911 census, when everybody suddenly aged a lot to be eligible for the pension. So the ladies didn't tend to do it. I looked at the ladies, they'll give it like 4 years, but they wouldn't give it 14, you know. So what you've got witness statements, and this is anybody who was applying for a pension has got to prove that they took part in the struggle. So what the great thing is that, because I looked at the Waterford ones, and my great-grandfather was born on sleeve lead, in 1722, and he was, he held a pike in 1798. All this, so the list, of this struggle, the profile of the struggle, it goes back, and then you actually come to the guy who's actually claiming a pension is, oh well, I held the coat for somebody gone, so it's it's sort of like it goes downhill quite rapidly. But then you've also got the girls who are saying what they were doing, and they were taking messages, and somebody was up and down on the Waterford to Dublin train like every other day with a message. So that is very interesting, when I got to his house and he wasn't there, so I got the bus down to Cork, I found him in Cork, and the detail is phenomenal. So you've got your index of witnesses, you've got your witness statements, they've got a lot of press cuttings of material that is of the time, and again, they're sifting out, but I'll come back to that later on. What they do have, which is fantastic, are images, photographs. And they've actually got recordings of conversations and interviews of people who are actually applying for the pension. There's plenty there to keep you busy. You can go in through the Bureau of the Military Archives site, or you can go in through the National Archives. Right, the next one was going to be children, so if you can imagine your family, it's gone invisible. If you can imagine your family photographs on your sideboard of all these beautiful little children with perfect hair that never existed, the ones with their innocent little faces, and that they were killing each other 2 minutes later after the photograph was over. Right, children's records. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to include the children of the Boy Scout movement in Ireland here, because they were children. This is the Bible, Scouting in Ireland, and it gives a record of all the different types of groups in Ireland who were working with young boys at the time. You want scouts.ie, I think I've written it down. Right, scouts.ie is a website. Be very careful. There's actually a disclaimer in the book saying be very careful where you go with scouts on the search engine. Scouting.ie, I think it is. But a fabulous book. Nafiana, who were the Boy Scouts who connected to the Rising, became part of the actual movement in 1921. I've got a note somewhere. Where is it? Here we are. That they were in 1921. They actually were given an official job to assist the Irish Army in operations, and their unit was to be at the disposal of the government. And these children, 13 and 14. Right. They were working. Now, what was happening was that they had the battalions connected to the same battalion of the Irish Volunteers. So. They worked in tandem, so these children were working in tandem. They are in photographs, so you can see them, they've got uniforms, everything. They were set up by Constance Markiewicz because she was worried about the militarisation of the Irish Boy Scouts, who were Baden Powell's lot. And she saw them as a recruiting ground for the British Army, which she didn't like. So, but all this is in Scouting for Ireland. We've got this out of the library, so there's going to be a run on them, and it's in Cork City Library in the open section, if you want to borrow it. I can't get much on the girls at the moment. I'm running out of places to look for the girls, but there were Girl Scouts, and there was an American group of Girl Scouts apparently. They were being set up in Ireland as well. Right, now school records, these are great for locating what your family are up to. Now, it was payment by results, and those teachers among us who know what that means, bums on seats, and everybody can write their name nicely. If the child was actually missing school or was throwing stones at the windows, they're going to turn up. So it's a bit of a mixed bag whether you want your family to be in the records or not. So you've got the school log, you've got admissions registers. They don't seem to be under the data protection. They belong to the schools. They don't belong to the parish, they belong to the school, and it's up to the school what they do with them. A lot of schools hold them. A lot of schools give them to archives. A lot of the country schools in Ireland actually have them printed out. They have them printed in booklet form, and you can buy them. So if there's like a celebration, they'll print the school log out. The other thing is the 1930s folklore project. Would you know about that? Right. Again, this understanding of sense of self and sense of nation. The government had a sponsored project where they asked all the schools, the national schools in Ireland, to do a folklore project. So every child in the school had to find a story about their family or the local place and write it down. So there was a lot of talk, obviously, among the family. The child then had to get the story sorted at home, come into school, and then it was written properly in a storybook. So not only you've got the family stories, you've got the local stories, you've got names of family and the neighbours, and you've also got the child's handwriting as well, which is just stunning, which is unbelievable. Now, they're mostly held in the local archives to the school, but they are on ducas.ie, and also apparently Family Search. Wendy can tell me better, but there is actually a set on Family Search on microfilm as well. But they are definitely worth looking at, especially if it's a rural area, and you're getting all the stories about, how the pig got stuck, and just wonderful stories like that. So the children, we've got photographs as well, obviously, of your little darlings, because that was the thing to do, was to take your children down to be photographed. And I've got quite a few studio photographs from Cork, from the guy on the corner. I think a wonderful one I was going to bring in, I forgot, of my uncle in the most wonderful lace dress. Stunning! And he's got the crew cut, because obviously they weren't breached till they were 3, wasn't it? Was it 3 in the 20s? And he's like a cascade, like a Christmas cake, wonderful. So a lot of children were photographed formally, but then you've also got the box brownie on the run around as well. So you're getting children sitting on the step eating a sweet. They're just again fantastic stories. Right, occupations. I'll go whip quite through because I'm ready for a cup of tea. Occupations are union records. I was going through. My head was getting wrecked with it, looking for occupational records for the early 1920th century. Remembering again that we're still part of the Crown here, the records are going to be. They're actually in Ireland and they're also in England as well. So Wiki came to my rescue here. See if I've got that. I don't think I've got my photograph on. Right. If you know what the name of your union was, you go into Wiki, go through Wiki and see how the union evolved and where it ended up. And a lot of them ended up in Unite, then where their archives are. Now, there's a lot of stuff in the local archives. I was finding records in the National Archives in Kew in England of arbitration records, where the Cork unions were arbitrating against the Central Union. So there's stuff around. There's a lot of stuff around actually. If you start down that path, you'll find a lot. So when you're actually looking at, say, workers in Fords or workers in the court docks, you go to the union. Don't try looking for court docs. I was a day looking for court docs and gave up. Go into the union records because they would all have been in the union. Okay. The customs, anything to do with water, up to I think 1930 is going to be in Kew in London. There's Coast Guard records there. I've been looking for them for ages, and again, why can't I find them? They're in Kew. Okay. A lot of the stuff there is actually downloadable. So you might get lucky with a record with your person's name on and be able to download it for, I think it's like $3.50. Yeah, $3.50. I was good guess. What else I was going to say to you? The railway records. There's the Railway Museum. It's actually in Houston. The Railway Museum in York has got more stuff. They've actually got I've got to check it, but I believe they've got the Irish railway wills from the First World War. They've got something strange like that. So it must be something to do with pensions. They've got sets of Irish records, okay? And a lot of people who actually work for the railway in Cork, and obviously more for Dublin, but an awful lot of people are connected to the railway in Cork. Newspaper archives. Now let's see if he's going to turn up. Is my fellow going to turn up? Oh, there they are. Oh, they've got themselves up. There's the beautiful children. Here's the railway. Now, this is the railway. This is actually an Irish engine, apparently. I don't believe it. I've got Irishmen working there, too, and they're in Ireland.
Big leg track, looks like.
They probably would, yeah. I mean, I've got family on in the English side. They were track layers, and very skilled work actually. They got a good job during the World War. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow these now, otherwise I'm going to get confused. First World War. I'm not going to go through it all, but nationalarchives.gov.uk, you've got a dedicated page, so you don't have to think too hard. All I'm going to say to you is VADs, the women army nurses. A lot of the girls from Ireland would have gone over during the First World War. If their brother was brother was actually involved, they'd go over to keep an eye on them, make sure they were okay, and join into the VADs. Also, it was a way in to actually get trained as a nurse. So they go into the Queen Alexandra nursing, and then they carry on as a nurse. So you might listen with your girls; they might actually be in those records. The other thing is the medal records. Is the one way in to finding your ancestor. They're not all correct. They were outsourced. Q outsourced them. Regretted doing it because the surnames are okay, but the first names are all a bit iffy. So again, go and look at the surnames and try and get a good match that way. Right, the local information is where you need to go. So if you've got somebody who's not turning up in your records, or somebody who survives, they're the difficult ones. The survivors, you can't find them because they were deemed to have completed their term in 1919. So when they were demobbed, they didn't get a pension. So unless you were actually injured as a result of war, you're not going to turn up. So there are no more pensions coming your way. So what I found was I lost a cousin because he was demobbed in 1919. He actually died of flu on the way home on the military ship. So even though he was actually on the military ship, he died of flu. So he wasn't anywhere. So they had a private stone to him in the graveyard. So you might find that happening, that they don't make it home. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission, you can apply to them and they will put a stone up for you. If you can prove that they died shortly after, then contact them and they'll do a stone for you. Where you look for them is the local record, the local information on the doorstep. Because if you have an uncle who was in the Irish Fuse, once the Fuse list, and they are not on the list, you are going to make darn sure that they are. So you're going to, the Cork Great Sacrifice one, that's actually an extended edition because a lot of people didn't make it into the book. So the local information is where you're going to find them. So if you know where the family were, check the local books. There's a series of books on competence and casualties by county for Ireland, and they were doing them as a one-off, and then everybody else jumped on board. And I believe the W one is fantastic. I haven't gone through it yet, but I believe it's huge and it's fantastic. They're all in the library, you don't have to buy them, go in the reference books. The other one, absolute stunner, absent voters list. How boring is that? It's picking up the people who are still actually on active duty when the elections came through in 1918. And again, Ireland is still part of the Crown. Even though we're kicking up and we're making a fuss and we're frightening the army, we're still part of the Crown. There should be sets of absent voters lists in the archives. I found a set for Carlo on Rootsweb, so they're around. So go and ask. What it gives you is, it gives you the person's name, rank, serial number, where they're actually working, and also then you've got your next of kin and where your next of kin live. So where they're coming home to when they're on leave, that address is there. So I actually found my granddad's second serial number, which confirmed his family story as it came out. And he actually went back in again. I was thrilled to bits because he'd actually gone back in and he got 2 serial numbers. So I've got to chase 2 serial numbers now. So looking for the yeah. Religious. I'll just quick one on the nuns. The nuns. Who's got a nun in their family? Everybody. Who's missing daughters? Right. The nuns are in the census. Your great auntie Gertrude is in the census. She's under her own name, right? search for your missing great aunties under their own name. They won't come up under, she's in a convent, they'll come up under a list of other women, and you hope it's a convent. Right. Now what's happening here with this is Waterford, this is fabulous, Waterford. I was looking for a nun in Waterford, right, this, you know how many convents are in Waterford. The Mother Superior has actually got her name in English. Okay, this is 1911. And the lady, I think she was the head of the house or something, she was in English. The rest of them are in Irish. And of course, you know, a lot of the names will not be Irish names. So they've tried to Gaelicize the surnames. And you've got some very strange things. But all the girls, all the nuns, apart from the two top ladies, have all changed their names to Irish names. Fabulous. And these are the nuns, right? The girls, obviously, then it's up to them what they do. The girls, the nuns made the commitment. They were going to make a statement that they were part of the Irish nation. Fabulous. Right, this is now, I might just have to end on this, but it's brilliant, right? This is in the Echo. This is in the Echo. Some of my friends might know this one. I call it the Langers on the Lock. Okay? 3 gentlemen, slightly worse for wear, on the lock. This is the Lock. If you don't know Cork, this is the Lock. This is an inland water event space on the west side. And there's also the church up there, it's called the Lock Church. And it's beautiful, it's got ducks and everything, and you can walk all around in the trees. So when it used to freeze, they used to have guys on the side who'd hire out the skates, and off you go. And because it was an event where a lot of people, the papers used to go down to get the photograph so that they could sell the paper. So these 3 gentlemen, they should have been in the Hollybough paper, and they decided it wasn't, they were going to keep it, so they put it online, and I thought, yeah, great fun. Then I looked, and I recognised the wedding suit, and I recognised the moustache, and I thought, right, okay. So on the right-hand side, that's my granddad, and on the left-hand side, that's my great-uncle Joe. And fine, upstanding members of the community, in their work clothes, worse for wear, smoking cigarettes, getting snapped by the paper. Now, Uncle Joe on the left, he was actually worked for the paper, and he used to go down with the photographer, and then they used to go and hassle people to get stories and photographs. So often, the lot of photographs have got my Uncle Joe somewhere in them, but you've got the expression of the policeman on the left-hand side. Absolutely priceless. 1912, I can tell you exactly what they were up to, and what was happening in our family in 1912, December 1912. What I am interested in, and I haven't got very far with, is what my Uncle Joe is wearing. You wouldn't normally be wearing that sort of stuff, especially when he wasn't skating. So I'm thinking it's some sort of uniform. I possibly thought it might be Scout uniform, Scout leader, but I'm wondering whether it's a volunteer's uniform. The other thing is that I went to the Coming a Man conference in Dublin and saw the badge that the women wore. We had that badge at home in the sewing box, and I had no idea. So we've got some connections to Coming a Man, and I'm wondering whether it's through Uncle Joe. Anyway, so that you never know what you're going to see in the newspaper archives. The Echo is fantastic. There are no, it's not organised, but there are free archives in there. And newspapers, again, British Library Archive.com has a lot of Irish newspapers in. The Irish Newspaper Archive's linked to it. You can use it for free in the libraries. Right. And here are the archives catalogues, sort of things you can get in Cork Archives, and these are not online. You've got motor tax drivers' licences, industrial school baptism record. Interesting, yeah. Boarded out children early in the 1900s are open. Those records are opened. These are the foster children that have been paid for. The later ones are closed to 2024, but you can go in and get the early ones. Dublin Public Record Office Archive. Now, the Dubliners and Londoners will know these folks. This is the earliest registered charity in Ireland. Those records run to 1941, which I had no idea. And I'd be interested to see who actually is in those. So it's the United and Charitable Society for the Relief of the Sick and Indigent Room Keepers of the City of Dublin. And family, now my last slide is a family records in Cork Archives.
if you were ever thinking about your family records of being no importance to anybody, that, you know, they're just a load of junk, who am I going to give them to? This is a set of papers in the archives, and I don't, anybody knows Seamus Fitzgerald? Yeah, I'm just waiting, so I'm just putting down. Seamus Fitzgerald from Cork, anybody? No, right, this is the man. His son deposited them, his records. He was born in 1896, he joined the Irish Volunteers, followed the Internal Rising, active in Sinn Féin and IRA, member of Fianna Fáil, active in the old IRA Mental Association, town councillor, member of the Cork Harbour Commissioners, started off the airport, and governing body of the UCC, Local Appointments Commission, Trade Union, Employees Organisation, owner of the Fitzgeralds, held directorships of the Cork Dockyard and Irish Steel, and interested in Irish language and music. Can you imagine the amount of material that's in those set of papers and the amount of the interest that that's going to generate for us? So that, don't ever think that your family are boring. And that's me. Good luck with your research.
Coffee outside. We open the doors there. I can go to this door and around. There's water there at the back, and the toilets are on either side of the balcony. And we'll be back about 25 to 12 if possible. And we'll continue with Rosalind next. Thank you.